All right, so now we're continuing in Matthew chapter 12, and Jesus says this. He says, "But if I by the Spirit of God cast out demons, then God's kingdom has come upon you. Or how can one enter into the house of a strong man and plunder his goods unless he first bind the strong man? Then he will plunder his house. He who is not with me is against me, and he who doesn't gather with me scatters." So I want you to imagine this. Imagine that God had, this great litter of dogs, and Satan came in and convinced those dogs to live with him, and then he put them in cages, he locked the door, and he set the house on fire. That was our destiny before Jesus came, is that we were in sin, we were apart from God, and we were going to get hurt because we were with Satan, who was rebelled against God. So Jesus came. He took care of Satan. He bound him up. He unlocked our cages. And it's crazy that so many people want to stay in that cage. That's what it's like when people reject the gospel. I wrote this in my commentary. We are living in a time where two kingdoms have collided, and the true king has bound the false king. Unfortunately, many do not want to make the switch, and they encourage other people to resist Jesus. So number one, it is so sad that people have rejected the freedom, the peace, the joy. They could have God take care of them. Jesus said, "I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly." God has bound Satan. He has made it that we don't have to live in sin anymore. We don't have to live in shame and condemnation anymore. And so many people are very happy rejecting Jesus, rejecting that. It's written in their hearts. I know so many people say, well, it's not logical, it's not scientific. That's crazy. You walk outside, you look at yourself in the mirror, you see what is obvious, that we have a creator. People look at a kid's toy and they're like, oh yeah, that was made by somebody. And yet they look in the mirror and they can't realize the same thing, that they were made by somebody. And then the other startling thing is that he who is not, when Jesus said, he who's not with me is against me, and he who doesn't gather with me scatters. I think there's so many people who are like, well, I'm a pretty good person. And they might have friends that are Christians and they don't think it's really a big deal. They don't think they're damaging the world, but they are. If you are not trying to bring other people to Jesus by grace through faith, you're hurting the world. There are so many horrible people in the world that try to convince others, and they're Christians, and they go to church. They're not real Christians, but they're trying to convince people in the world to earn God's love. That is crazy. There are people who are just like nonchalant about God. That also, it gives a picture to other people. Well, maybe I can just relax and not really pursue God. Maybe I can just focus on my hobbies and eating and going out to eat and just making a decent income. So if you're not full on trying to bring other people to Jesus, you, whether you realize it or not, are pushing people away because they're going to imitate you, or they're going to say, well, that person's really not trying to bring other people to Jesus. So that's sobering. So the 2 points. Number one, make sure that you are experiencing freedom in Jesus from knowing the truth that he made available to you. He has delivered us from sin, from Satan, and you need to enjoy that freedom. He's captured us back. The second thing is you need to help as many people as possible experience freedom in Jesus. If you're not, you are unknowingly scattering them away from Jesus. If you're the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy. You just don't really care. The opposite of loving Jesus is just not really caring about Jesus, and you're helping other people not care about Jesus.